Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We are considering the Niyama called Santosha, the second of the Niyamas. And therein we came to that quotation from Mahabharata, Shanti Parva. So it's a quotation of Mahabharata 12.276.6 that the Kamajanya Sukha, the Sukham usually comes to us, or the happiness and delight and pleasure comes to us usually by desire-fulfilment. So the worldly happiness is more related to desire-fulfilment. We need to trace the desire, the happiness, which is not based on desire fulfillment. So Adhyatma speaks about Vishayajanya Sukha or Vishaya Sukha and Nirvishaya Sukha, Vishayaananda and Nirvishayaananda. The worldly man doesn't go in search of Nirvishayaananda. Worldly man goes in pursuit of pleasure, which is out of desire satisfaction. But of course there is Nirvishaya Sukham, and Adhyatma highlights this kind of Sukham, which is Nirvishaya Sukham. And therefore Adhyatma tries to impress on our minds about something that is called as Atma Sukham. That is Paramarthika Sukham, that is spiritual happiness. In fact, the word happiness in English is such that there is nothing like spiritual happiness, because the happiness is something empirical, temporal, and it always depends upon human tendencies. Tendencies gratified, happiness comes up. Desire satisfied, happiness comes up. So happiness is always with the klesha. But there is of course the happiness which should not be called as happiness, because the word happiness has a limited connotation and it doesn't circumscribe what we are trying to describe. So this happiness or Sukham, Nirvishaya Sukham, Nirvishayaananda, is something that Adhyatma diverges. Adhyatma also gives the experience of the subjectivistic, from the very core consciousness, from the consciousness which is very, very mineral consciousness. From there the Sukha comes. That is why Adhyatma speaks about the Pancha koshas, Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha. So Anandam is something which is at the core consciousness. So point is that there is some such Anandam which is called Nirvishayaananda, Aatmaananda, Paramaananda, etc. And that is only in spiritual path, in spiritual pursuit. But there is also Sukham, which is again in the realm of Adhyatmic evolvement, and that is called Trushna Tyaaga Roopi Sukham. The Sukham that comes out of desireless-ness. When the mind and psyche is seeded with desireless-ness, that itself is a Sukham. Desire-fulfilment gives Sukham, no doubt about it. But having no desire itself is another kind of Sukham, which is not the pursuit of materialistic man, worldly man. But there is that Sukham which is called Trushna Tyaaga Roopi. The Sukham of the nature of Trushna Tyaaga. The Sukham of the nature of renunciation of desires. Immersion of all desires. End of all desires. That itself is Sukham. And the Mahabharata quotation that I am speaking about tells us that this spiritual Sukham, Nirvishayaananda, Trushna Tyaaga Roopi Sukham, the Sukham out of desireless-ness, if you consider that volume of that Sukham, quality and quanta of that Sukham, the worldly Sukham is not even 1/16th of that. Shodasha kalaa is the word which comes in Sanskrit language. So what we describe as not even 1/100th of it, not even 1,000th of it, not even 1,000,000th of it, etc., etc. So that is the expression in Sanskrit that the worldly pleasure is not even 1/16th of pleasure. That means not even fraction of the pleasure which is by spiritual pursuit, Trushna Tyaaga, or the Nirvishayaananda, Aatmaananda. It is so huge that our worldly pleasures that you might get even in this world or even the next world, terrestrial world, celestial world, ahika Sukham, Swargiya Sukham, that Sukha is not even 1,000,000th of it, 1,000,000,000th of it, not even a fraction of it. Such is this Sukham of desireless-ness, according to quotation in Mahabharata. Now this desire is perhaps the formidable foe of spiritual pursuit. That is perhaps the most formidable antagonizing aspect in spiritual pursuit. So it is very balavana pratipaksha, opponent of spiritual path. The greatest and formidable opponent of spiritual path or obstacle in spiritual path is Trushna, is the thirst. So there is also a verse in Mahabharata in Adi Parva 1.85.14. So it says that this Trushna, the thirst, is very difficult to cross or to be crossed by the evil-minded people, demonic people, cruel people. So it is very difficult to give up. The brutality is because of desires. You cannot come across a brutal person, brute, who is desireless. It is a desire which makes man become a brute. So it is very difficult to give up the desire. Trushna Tyaaga is absolutely difficult for a worldly person, consumeristic person, a demonically disposed person. And because it is such a formidable foe, the spiritual pursuit identifies that. And then the Mahabharata verse says that even if the body has become very, very old, decrepit, jirna shirna, the body has become weak, fragile and rotten even, yet this thirst is navataruni. This thirst is like a young damsel which is vexing the human mind. Like bewitching damsel will be tormenting, harassing a sensual person, sensual man, that he cannot be enjoying any sensuality, but yet that bewitching damsel will be tormenting the sensual man, carnal, cupid person. Similarly, this Trushna, even if when a person becomes very, very, very old, that no bhoga can be taken, cannot be experiencing any delight and pleasure, the body has become fragile and weak and incapable of taking any pleasures. The more person becomes older and older, desire grows younger and younger. This is what the poet of Mahabharata says, that the person grows older and older and older, and the desire is becoming younger and younger and younger. Now you can understand the plight of life. It is always navataruni, eternal youth is granted to desire. And therefore Trushna Tyaaga is almost improbable. But wise man knows this, and he knows that the happiness in life is only to be traced in Trushna Tyaaga. The moment you give up the desires, you are paving way to become happy in life. So that is what has been said about the Trushna, on account of which we are asantushta, we are discontented. The Santosha is related to himsa in a big way, as I just now said, that a brute is always discontented. His discontentment is of enormous proportion, astronomical proportions, because of which he becomes a brute. So, what is to be understood here, that Santosha is such a fundamental thing in yoga that absence of it, the lack of it, insufficiency of it even, will easily make a practitioner vulnerable to himsa. And the Santosha would be facilitating ahimsa practices, ahimsa pursuits. So Santosha will be facilitating ahimsa, and asantosha will be dragging one, pushing one into himsa. So the first of the yama is also based on Santosha. This is to be understood here. The first of the yama, ahimsa, can be psychoanalyzed, and you will come to know that the Santosha is underlying ahimsa vritti, ahimsa tendency, ahimsa practice, and ahimsa glory, ahimsa power. Santosha is underlying it. You cannot imagine even, not as even as an exception it is possible, that despite absence of Santosha there is ahimsa. So you can trace how Santosha is so fundamental. It is at the base of all the 5 yamas, although this is coming in this Niyamas and the second limb of Niyama. So, what is preceding the mention of Santosha, as we are now aware that Shaucha was mentioned as a Niyama which preceded Santosha. And then what preceded Niyama was Aparigraha, Brahmacharya, Asteya, Satya, Ahimsa. So all the preceding factors of Ashtanga Yoga are Santosha Mulaka. And now what is being mentioned after Santosha, such as tapas, swadhyaya, ishwar pranidhan, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, these are also based on Santosha. So Santosha is a base for all the yamas and niyamas and Ashtanga Yoga and perhaps the entire spiritual pursuit leading to samam bona spiritual purpose. So that's how the Santosha should be looked at. The tapas that follows Santosha is something that is unique, because tapas can be there basically because of asantushtata. Why somebody practices austerity is because there is discontent. So the tapas that comes in other pursuits of life will be based on absence of santosh, and therefore they have one particular characteristic, that there is underlying absence of santosha, non-santosha, non-santushtata, non-contentment, uncontentment, discontentment, and therefore austerities are taken up. But in yoga, if it is to be a genuine tapas, then there must be santosha underlying it. It stands out. Tapas based on santosh, it stands out, and that is what is advocated in Ashtanga Yoga when it comes to Anushthan level. Otherwise, usually austerities are practiced because of discontent in the mind. One is not contented by what one is, and there is a discontent that leads to human development. So it is interesting to note that discontent is basis of human evolvement. If you are not discontented in what you are, you will never evolve. So material evolvement needs discontent at the base. The spiritual evolvement also needs some discontent at the base. But there comes a level where the discontent is not going to give you that leap of spiritual progress, evolvement. So somewhere there should be no discontentment about what one is. Then still a pursuit of tapas will be totally different characteristically, innately, intrinsically. The point is, the tapas that is mentioned, because tapas is also in Kriya Yoga and Kriya Yogi. Now there is no discontent there. So the tapas of two kinds is mentioned in Yoga Shastra. One is based on discontent, the other one based on contentment. So in other purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, and of course moksha also to some extent, the discontent is at the base. But after a level, there is contentment generated tapas. And that is the tapas of yogis, jnanis, bhaktas, that they do not have even trace of discontent, although they are having structure of tapas. So something needs to be pondered over this concept of tapas that Patanjali is speaking of. Of course, Ashtanga Yoga being yoga of Adhamadikari, there will be discontent. But in Kriya Yoga, there will be content on which there will be tapas. The point is, it is ideal to have tapas coming out of contentment, Swadhyay coming out of contentment, Ishwar Pranidhan coming out of contentment, Asana Pranayam etc. coming after contentment. Although that is not our cup of tea, there are practitioners of yoga on that level. The Santosha becomes fundamental. Because the Abhyasa Vairagya are the two means of supreme yoga, Samadhi yoga. So there you can see how there is contentment. Usually we are used to the Vairagya, which is referred to as Pashana Vairagya. You are melancholy, and because of melancholy that you are having Vairagya. Now that is not the Vairagya that Patanjali is speaking about. So that needs to be taken note of. The Tathparyam of what is being said, the Yoga Abhyasi, Yoga Sadhaka, Yoga Pravartaka, Yoga Margastha, these people should take note of one thing, that Sharira Manasa Sthiti Anarogya, that is unwellness, unwell-being, or Kautumbik Prapanchik inclemencies, the worldly inclemencies in personal life, family life, social life, there will be some kind of misfortune or discontent in the mind. But that should not churn out discontent in the chitta. Because we are going to have this unaccomplished conditions, we are going to face deficiencies, we will be lacking, we do not have ideal personal conditions, family conditions, social conditions, we more are encountering the unsuitable conditions, inclement conditions in our life. Yet we must first make an attempt to see that the kshobha, the agitation, is not allowed to pierce the chitta too deep. Like otherwise, when you are walking through the forest barefooted, you can't expect that you will not be pierced by the thorns. So we will be pierced by the thorns if we are walking barefooted in the forests. So that's how we are in the world. So we will be pricked by these sorrows, but we should not allow that to penetrate deep into our chitta. That precaution we must take. And that is possible when you have little contentment in you. If you don't have contentment, then you are easily pierceable by the thorns that you face in the life. And therefore there is something that is called as Santosha sadhana. We must do something to be santushta. So this is what the Paramartha tells us. We don't have conditions to be contented, but yet we should not be discontented. So something of that nature must be developed. Anyway, let it be as it may. Now we have to understand that authentic, genuine yoga will not really commence with discontent bubbling in our minds. So this must be understood. Then we will be able to take some measures. If we do not understand this at all, then there is no chance of any measures taken. So what is called as Abhijata Yoga, essential yoga, quintessential yoga, it will not be possible if the discontent is in the mind, and if discontent can easily reach your chitta, can easily touch your mind. If you are disinsulated, then you will have problems. Otherwise, the path of yoga is like a pathway which is totally covered by banana skin. How will you walk on the path which is totally covered by banana skin? You are every now and then you are going to slip, fumble, fall, get up and again fall, get up and again fall. So the path would be like that, as if studded by banana skin. Then you will be fumbling, slipping, sliding more often and almost all the time. So point is, yogic yama, yogic niyama are Santosha Mulaka. The entire yoga sadhana is Santosha Mulaka. Yogic tapas, yogic swadhyaya, yogic Ishwar Pranidhan. Because tapas, swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhan is also coming in other virtuous practices. But then the Santosha is not there and can be not there, and you can still pursue the dharma, artha, kama, purushartha, moksha, purushartha. The four purusharthas can be pursued with discontent in the mind. But somewhere the authentic, genuine aspect of that Paramartha and yoga is only possible when you understand that one's mind should be insulated to asantosha, discontent. And therefore the Vrata Vaikalya of genuine yogi will be totally different, because the mind is already insulated to these currents of discontent. So I recall a verse of Bhagavad Gita in the 12th chapter, 14th verse, Santushtaha satatam yogi yatatma dhrudhanishchayaha mayyarpita manor buddhihi yamad bhakta same priyaha. Santushtaha satatam yogi, santushtaha, santosh, satatam yogi, all the time. Then he also is yatatma. Yatatma means restrained person, not given to tendencies. Dhrudhanishchayaha, well determined in spiritual pursuit. And mayyarpita mano buddhihi, and when he has offered his mano buddhi, manas and buddhi to me, he is my beloved bhakta. This is what Bhagavad Gita says. So also the 12.19 verse of Bhagavad Gita, Tulya ninda stuti mauni santushto yena kenachit aniketa siramatir bhakti man me priyo naraha. I also love such a bhakta who has these qualities. Tulya ninda stutihi, he is equal to ninda or stuti. He is equal to any accolades given to him, praise showered on him, or even abuses showered on him, abuses hurled at him. He is even-minded. So also Mauni. So also observing Maunam. Maunam is an enormous concept. Of course, we'll be discussing this Maunam. It's not just being in silence. It's an ocean depth concept, which we will be considering when we come to tapas, because tapas means kaya, vacha, manasa, tapas. And then Vachik tapas has a kind of maunam, and then we'll explore the ocean depth of maunam. It's not just silence of the nature of soundlessness. There is also silence of mind, silence of deeper mind, silence of very consciousness, psyche. So anyway, maunam is that one of the vratas, one of the mode of tapasya, which is called maunam. And then santushtaha, again the same predicate that we are discussing, santushta, contented. For whatever he has, yena kena chit, aniketaha, who is not attached to any place, sthiramati, steady in mind, steady in buddhi, such bhakta is my beloved bhakta. So again there, Bhagavan Shri Krishna counts santushta, the quality which we are discussing. So Dharma Shastra, Karma Shastra, Jnana Shastra, Yoga Shastra, Bhakti Shastra, they are all praising Santosh. So therefore in spiritual path one should understand how important is Santosh, Vritti, Santosh or Santushta Chitta. And in yoga you get this Santushtata by antarmukhi, by dwelling inwardly, by going inwardly, by dwelling inwardly there comes the bliss or Santushtata or Santosh, contentment. So it is quite, that comes from mineral consciousness. Yogi will be mining the consciousness to get hold of this contentment, while we look outside and try to look at contentment in objects which lie outside us. This is what the worldly man does. By interpenetrating the psyche consciousness, one experiences Anandam, Aatmaanand, Paramaananda, Brahmananda, all these great volumes or pearls of Santushtata are to be traced in the mind of consciousness and not in the objects around us. And therefore, you can now understand with this fountain of bliss drenching the chitta from within would lead one to yajna dana tapas in an exalted way. Satsanga, sadhana sanga, shastra sanga in an exalted way. Ahar, vihar, achar, vichar in an exalted way. And therefore, the spiritual seeker will be heading towards samyama, samyamita jivanam. So, that's how the Santosha is to be looked at. Now, what is the Santosha sadhana? We come to a moot point here. What is Santosha sadhana? What has to be done for this? In Paramartha, in Yoga, in Adhyatma, the Santosha is only to be had in the path of Sat Sangha. So, it should be given enormous priority. Giving no priorities to satsanga, there will be no churning of santosha from within. So it must have priority. Satsanga must have priority for one who is on the spiritual path. Satsanga means, as I have repeatedly said, sadhu sangha, santa sangha, sattva sangha, satya sangha, sattva sangha. So this should be given priority, then you will definitely excavate the mine of Anandam, mine of bliss, mine of contentment. So also, one must be reformed in Ahar, Vihar, Achar, Vichar. So these aspects are going to peep in every time that we discuss practice of yoga, practicing various aspects of yoga, the Sangatraya and the Aharadi Chatushyam, the triad of Sangha, Satsanga, Sadhana Sangha, Shastra Sangha, and the quartet of Achar, Vichar, Ahar, Vihar. This is the way to go for eternal bliss, eternal sukha, eternal contentment, absolute contentment, essential happiness. And therefore there should be no heedlessness when we are pursuing these aspects of yoga. Because modern practitioners of yoga do not look at these factors which are fundamental factors in yogic practices. Yajna, dana, tapas as mulya, as values in life. Satsanga, sadhana sangha, shastra sangha. I will not elaborate on this once again now. We have done it umpteen number of times. Ahar, vihar, achar, vichar, chaturtyam. Again, I am not going to dwell on that. We have done it umpteen number of times. That's how Santosha sadhana commences. So, satsanga, then sadhana sangha, I would like to slightly elaborate on it. The sadhana that Yoga Shastra offers is a sure way to be reaching that Santosh. Because Yoga Sadhana circumscribes Dharma Sadhana, Kartavya Palanam, Nama Sadhana, Japa Sadhana, Mantra Sadhana, Ishtadevata Upasana, Yoga Sadhana, that means Yogasana, Pranayam, Yoga Kriya, Mudra, Yogasana Kriya, Yoga Kriya, Prana Kriya, Chakra Kriya, Tattva Kriya, then the Trigranthi Kriya and Shariratraya Kriya. So these are all circumscribed by yogic practices, and you can easily trace how they would give you a better technology to mine up the Anandam, which is in the deep core consciousness. So there is Sthula Sharira Sadhana, Sukshma Sharira Sadhana, Karana Sharira Sadhana. Bhagavad Gita describes something as Sharira Tapa, Vachika Tapas, Manasa Tapas. So you will get some directions if you look into these aspects. The Bhagavad Gita 17th chapter speaks about Sharira Tapas, Vachika Tapas and Manasika Tapas, Sattvika Tapas. So that is what Bhagavad Gita tries to divulge in the 17th chapter. Then there is Sukshma Sharira Sadhana, which is Nama Sadhana, Japa Sadhana, Mantra Sadhana, Dhyana Sadhana. Then there is Karana Sharira Sadhana, which is Drashtritvam, Sakshitvam, that is objectifying the subjective entity, and then witnessivity. So that's the Karana Sharira Sadhana. So all these sadhanas which I have been telling you repeatedly are going to be doing a mining act to excavate the innate Sukham, Santushtata, Anandam. Then Shastra Sangha, Shravana, Manana, Vachana, Pathana, Chintana, Manana, Charcha, Pravachanam. All these portals are available in Shastra Sangha. That you must read the Shastras, you must hear the Shastras from authoritative people. So there must be Vachanam, that is reading, Shravanam, that is hearing, Pathanam is to formally study, Pathanam is to by heart, know the things by heart, Chintanam, Mananam, which are deliberative, reflective processes, Charcha, debating, discussing with like-minded people who are in spiritual pursuit, Pravachana, listening to the discourses of wise people, and then taking up serious studies of Shruti, Smriti, Itihas, Puran, Nyaya Shastra, Vedanta Shastra, Gita Shastra, Sankhya Shastra, Yoga Shastra, Dharma Shastra, Adhyatma Shastra, Moksha Shastra, Brahma Vidya Shastra, and taking recourses to reading and studying and contemplating on literature that the saints have been giving to us in all eras, in all regions, in all languages. To cite few from Marathi, Jnaneshwari, Tukaram Gatha, Eknathi Bhagavad, Dasbodh, Amrutanubhav, Haripat, Sakala Sant Gatha, and the Hindu Samskruti, Vedic Samskruti offers enormous literature which has been penned down in different eras. So the Gospels of Saints, Bhagavad Leela, Bhagavad Charcha, there is much to discuss on the Bhagavad Leela, the Bhagavan and his Leelas, and then there is a lot to discuss on Bhagavan, that's called Bhagavad Charcha. Shravana, Manana, Vachana, Chintana, Anushilana, Parishilana. So all these portals are opened out, and that will help us excavate the innate Santosha which is within us. It is not something that we have to acquire it from outside. It has to be dug out from within. We are in this quality of Santosha, Ananda, Sukham is embedded in us. It has to be churned out. So one can now open out the sadhana that one needs to do for Santosh. And that is why Patanjali also says, Santoshat anuttama sukhalabha. Greatest joy is in excavating the Santosha that is within and not going and extracting Santosha which is outside. Otherwise, we are all used to extract happiness from flowers and fruits and things and terrestrial things and celestial things. We go out and try to procure the pleasures, while the essential pleasure is within us. That has to be mined up. That has to be excavated. So that is what I felt essential to tell about the Santosha as a Niyama. And we have dug that out, I think, sufficiently for us to have some kind of idea about what is this Niyamanga Santosh. So with this, we are concluding our discussion on Santosha. Next in line is tapas, the third Niyamanga. We will take that up next time. So enough for the time being. Namaskar all of you.